there was an entire new scandal just revealed in the last few hours. And I'm going to read you the article off the Post. I could keep this up on the screen. But last night, Eric Sanders, as you know, he's been on my show. He's also my attorney. He broke this on X late last night. So the Post is basically, I don't know, I'm going to read this. And it's almost like two different things are going on right now. But that's Eric Sanders actually broke this last night. And that was the Post. I don't know if you want to scroll down that. But I'm going to read the article and then go to some other revelations Eric Sanders had on top of it with this. So, and mind you, folks, this is all police officers. They're in distress and they call and they don't know who to turn to. So there's a lot with this whole story. So that's the headline in the Post. Dozens of troubled NYPD cops finally forced to resign after faulty hiring standards. And this was written by Amanda Woods, Joe Marino, Tina Moore, and Larry Salona. Dozens of NYPD cops who failed to meet the department standards, including for mental health, are now being forced to resign or else they'll be fired from the force, law enforcement sources revealed Thursday. A total of 30 cops hired between 2023 and 2024 under Inspector Terrell Anderson, who has since been transferred out of this role with the police academy, are being notified of the purge Thursday, according to the sources. They all got called down, a police source told the Post. They're being told, you didn't meet the qualifications. You shouldn't have been hired. You have 24 hours to resign or be fired. That is not legal in my eyes, but whatever. A lot of them are psych issues, the sources. There are other issues, too. The NYPD confirmed the move in a statement issued to the Post. Following an internal investigation, the NYPD recently identified officers who joined the department in the past 2 years despite receiving final notices of disqualification during the application process, which is a violation of the law, a department spokesperson said. The department was not legally allowed to hire these individuals and was forced to inform them that they could no longer continue as members of the NYPD. During their application process, the recruits were issued notices of disqualification, which prohibits the NYPD from hiring them as a matter of state law, the sources said. Some of the recruits in questions allegedly lied about their previous convictions, multiple arrests, and previous employment terminations, according to the sources. The officers' guns were removed over the past few days, the source said. Patrick Hendry, president of the Police Benevolent Association, is seeking a temporary restraining order to stop the cops' removal from the department. These police officers aren't responsible for the NYPD's broken hiring process, Hendry said. As far as they know, they were qualified to be New York City police officers because the NYPD hired and trained them. It is an absolute travesty that the department is trying to cover its tracks by summarily forcing them off the job without affording them the same appeal process available to other applicants, the union head said. We are exploring all legal options to protect our members' rights and hold the NYPD accountable for this complete management failure. Meanwhile, Anderson, who led the NYPD's candidate assessment division, was transferred to the housing unit back on May 12th as part of an Internal Affairs Bureau probe into claims he allowed more than 70 candidates to stay at the academy, even though they had failed the psych requirements. Anderson is now facing serious departmental charges, according to the source. Among the troubled recruits allegedly kept on by Anderson was Emilio Andino, the nephew of ex-NYPD Lieutenant Quatisha Epps, the former department bigwig implicated in a tawdry sex for OT scandal, the sources said. Andino, who was on probation, was previously fired after getting into a fight at the academy, according to the sources. So that is that article, and there's more now coming from Eric Sanders, who's been on I don't know. He's been like unloading on them, right? So here it is. This is one of the latest things that he had said here. What the NYPD did has opened Pandora's box, and I have no idea what's coming. I've been inundated with calls about the NYPD candidate assessment division's corrupt hiring practices stretching back to the late 1980s. We're talking about years of buried files, selectively enforced disqualifications, unqualified hires with disqualifying histories, and a blatant double standard that favors insiders and cronies over qualified applicants. I now have names, and many of those names lead straight to the NYPD executive staff the same one who signed off on psychological. Let's keep pulling that down. All right, psychological disqualifications for trauma survivors while quietly ushering in candidates with known drug use, sealed records, sealed arrests, and worse. So let's stop pretending this is about fitness. This is about power, politics, and protecting the NYPD's internal caste system. If the department thought it could scapegoat a few probationary officers and keep the rest under wraps, they miscalculated. This isn't about defending the 37 PPOs. This is about dismantling a rigged system that has harmed generations of qualified candidates, particularly women, survivors, and people of color, while shielding the connected and the compromised. This time, we're not walking away. We're bringing the whole thing down, one affidavit, one deposition, one executive at a time. This is quite the bombshell you're hearing right there, folks. And he even said more here because they particularly attacked, they were attacking his client. The PBA chimed in. So it was more. I'm now hearing that the PBA has allegedly filed a preliminary injunction in court related to the sweeping and deeply troubling action against newly hired probationary police officers. If true, it's necessary first step. But let's be clear, regardless of the outcome of that filing, every affected officer still has an individual cause of action against the NYPD and its leadership. Each member has a right to challenge what is plainly an unlawful and retaliatory misuse of psychological screening. Then so-called assessments are based on circular reasoning and wholly subjective conclusions, more about what an unqualified psychologist thinks of you than any objective job-related forensic criteria. These evaluations violate not only the uniform guidelines on employee selection procedures, but also basic principles of due process, equal protection, and anti-discrimination law. Commissioner Jessica S. Tisch, best known as the soccer mom around here, hailed in some circles as the NYPD savior, has presided over and enabled the discriminatory framework. Under her leadership, trauma survivors have been re-traumatized. Women have been interrogated about their private sexual histories, and otherwise qualified candidates have been pushed out based on stigma, not science. No injunction can fully undo the damage already done, but rest assured, the administration and every official who took part in a systematic abuse will be held accountable, whether in federal court, before state agencies, or in the court of public opinion. This fight is just beginning. He's right about a lot there. This is another one here. He said, and to every probationary police officer being dragged into this mess, remember this: PBA lawyers are not your personal attorneys. They represent the union, not you individually. Their interests may not align with yours, especially when the goal becomes damage control instead of justice. You have a legal right to consult with independent counsel if you're choosing someone who will advocate for you, not the institution. Do not let anyone pressure you into silence, resignation, or signing anything without fully understanding your rights and the consequences. This is not the time for blind trust. It's the time to protect your future. If the system can flip on you this fast, you need someone in your corner who's not answering to the same people trying to make you disappear. That is 100% correct. I really advise everybody here, if you're a police officer and this has happened to you, and I'm talking about if you're being one of these people or they're targeting you, I've been there. The PBA does not have your best interests, okay? They don't. You really need to contact outside counsel, independent. I know it might cost money, but trust me, in the long run, you'll thank me for it, because you cannot trust the PBA was silent on all of this, by the way, and it's just and there's more. I want one more thing that Eric said here. And let's be clear, don't be misled by the New York Post headline. It's a red herring. Just like the NYPD's flimsy case against these probationary police officers. Sensationalism is the department's favorite distraction tactic. When the facts don't support their actions, they pivot to character assassination, media manipulation, and vague insinuations. Isn't the finest unfiltered? Clearly, haven't you seen this unfold in front of your eyes with all of us, with the police department, with me, with John, with Eric, with Marlon? They did it with my client, Emilio Andino, and they're doing it again now. The NYPD would rather spin a headline that explain why it's relying on unlicensed psychologists, subjective trauma shaming evaluations, and legally indefensible reasoning to purge its own probationary police officers. That's not public safety. It's public deception. So if you're reading the tabloids, read between the lines. The louder the smear, the weaker their case. And I would know that because they called me a right-wing extremist, all kinds of stuff. And then they tell you, yeah, by the way, Sal never did anything wrong or illegal or criminal. We just don't like that he's friends with someone. So I could personally attest to this. So there was a lot there. I wanted to put that out because that's breaking news. And again, this has been a system. They're trying to get rid of Inspector Anderson, make him the scapegoat, when clearly it's a systematic issue. Jessica Tisch, the soccer mom, I keep telling everyone, they're all praising her. I know Mamdani, they told Mamdani, if you're mayor, you need to keep her as the police commissioner. I don't know who and what's going on behind the scenes with that. Right there, Mamdani urged to keep Tisch as police commissioner is considering it. So, I don't know. Her family are big-time power brokers in politics, man, because she has been pushed everywhere, all over you, everywhere, writing her own articles, puff pieces, yet corruption flourishes underneath her, and cover-ups. She is a soccer mom, like I like to say. In my eyes, soccer mom Jessica Tisch. She has no idea about the culture of the police department. She just wants to smile in front of the camera so that she could someday be mayor. I guess that's the strategy I see, because this is a mess. In 1 week, she gets hit with this. And also, there's lawsuits that were filed by Chief. So without any further ado, let me bring on Serena Townsend.
Hey, Serena. Sal. You got me on the run today. I'm in my car.
I know. Well, thanks for being on. I know you were in court. But before we get into the Chiefs thing, what is your take on what I just read, this whole thing with how they're basically trying to, I don't even know if it's legal. I know the police commissioner could terminate who they want, but this sounds absolutely in violation of people's due process and how the NYPD is even going about this.
Yeah, the fact that they're probationary hurts them a little bit because their rights are different from those who are, full members. But that being said, this should definitely be a consult with, as you said, a paid attorney. I would not rely on the union's attorneys. And I would definitely, if you're one of those, I think it's 37 officers who were basically just terminated. I can't believe it. They must be horrified at the treatment by the police department that they are trying to get into. For all they know, they were absolutely qualified for the position. They were hired. They're already, involved in learning and training for the job. They haven't done anything, right, Sal? Like they're not under investigation for any misconduct whatsoever. They just exist. And now all of a sudden they don't have a job anymore. Absolutely. You must consult paid counsel, somebody who's not connected with the department or the union, and make sure that you go through all of your options with that attorney, because you could have a claim.
I think this is not only a claim, it's in total violation of their rights, because, you had no problem hiring them and they're not in trouble for anything. Because remember, these are not people just in the academy. They're working. They're in uniform. They're in precincts. So they haven't done anything wrong. There's nothing wrong. Yet you're now saying we got to pull you back and you got to get fired for what exactly? Oh, we messed up hiring you? How does that, and why? And another thing too is they're trying to make this Anderson guy the scapegoat for a lot of things. And I understand that candidate assessment thing, it's a panel. It's been a panel for years that determine who stays and who goes. So it's not Anderson that makes the final decision. There's a panel of people, the people in his office, the CO, the XO. So they're not telling you the full truth. And that's the other issue here. Shout out to Frankie Pagliucci, who says, yes, paid attorneys will have you back. He sends $9.99. I'll make sure, Frankie, I get a couple of extra espressos today. Thanks for the donation. But I mean, this is just unbelievable, Serena. So with that,
it is. Wait, I want to say one more thing with that, because you're like, I was floored by what I read with this, and I'm glad you're covering it. The other thing I would say is, since you've already mentioned they're on the job already, there's a couple of things that follow from that, right? So now what? Now all the people that they collared or all the people that they interacted with are going to have lawsuits against PD saying you allowed a mentally ill person to collar me. I mean, right? You're opening yourself up to that liability. And then the other thing, Sal, is if the claim is simply you have mental health issues, like you failed the mental health exam, but we had you working, what did they do on the job that kind of corroborates that they have mental health issues? Because if you can't point to anything, if they've been working satisfactorily on the job, right? They've been doing a good job. None of these things have affected their ability to do the job. Do you really have, the right evidence and standing to say that, in fact, you would be a liability to the department? I would argue if they've been doing a good job this whole time, how can you say that they can't do a good job? I don't know. I don't think it's good. I think it's bad.
I am in total agreement with you, because I didn't even think about any arrests that they made, because that can now boomerang on all of the entire police department. You're saying a mentally unwell person that you said you had no problem with, but now all of a sudden they do. Now you have a problem with them, so that means that all their arrests are what? There's a conflict there, which means now the city. Eric Adams has a new scandal every 5 minutes.